Hi there, this is Billy Earl, and we are on Eastern Shore Politics. We are very proud and grateful today to have Jamie Dykes, who is the state's attorney for Wicomico County and a diligent and excellently postured servant for the law enforcement in our town. Jamie, thank you for coming.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
I know you're busy. Let's do a little bit of recap of the last year and just what's happening in your world.
So 2023 was a busy year. 2024 is shaping up to be just as busy, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. So already this year, we have been involved in months-long investigations related to a Pizza City shooting last year, and that also bled over into the mass shooting on Chippewa. We've earlier this month made 4 additional arrests in those cases. So that's exciting that those people are now off the street. Now we're preparing for trial. In looking back to 2023, we served, State's Attorney's Office reviewed, law enforcement served 942 search warrants last year.
Wow. Is that up significantly?
It's up 88% since 2018.
Okay.
So we are, our juries require more evidence than ever from a forensic standpoint, and they should, to be clear, right? We want to, if we're asking the court to take someone's liberty, the jurors and the court should have great confidence in that conviction. So they're not all separate cases. Many relate to a single homicide case or a very long-term investigation. But that's a huge number, and it takes a lot of my staff's time to review all those search warrants.
Okay. I hear this from some of my neighbors from time to time, and I think they're wrong in this, but they're saying that Salisbury's crime rate is excessively high. That's not true, is it?
I won't say it's not true.
Okay.
Candidly. The public many times doesn't know everything that's going on.
Right.
Our news outlets are sparse. I can't say they're not wrong.
Now, just a plug for what Brian Russo is doing at Delmarva Public Radio or Public Media. He's got a bunch of young people from Salisbury University who are down there who are training to be reporters and training to be journalists in this. So let's keep an eye out for them. This will be great stories. In fact, I think one of them did coverage of that horrible motorcycle accident on Route 13. And a bunch of my friends who hang out at the Guitar Man and kibitz. They kibitz all day long, but they said when that bike came up the street, it was just it felt like it was 100 miles an hour.
We are seeing, it's interesting. In the past 2 weeks, we have had, I believe the number is 5 serious motor vehicle accidents causing serious injury or fatalities. And we expected a rise with marijuana usage. Not that I can tie marijuana usage to any of those.
There's
at this
probably
point.
a causation element there.
So yes, our phones have been ringing off the hook that way, unfortunately. But yes, very tragic, very tragic.
Yeah. So. I used to ride motorcycles, and I never had to put one down. But when that does happen, I think it's a big red flag. And it should be to young people who are out there riding motorcycles. Don't be impaired. Don't be impaired even slightly. It's dangerous enough what you're doing because people don't necessarily react well to motorcycles. But if you're doing 100 miles an hour up Route 13 going north, you're just asking for it. And I pity the family, of the young man who lost his life. But it's not like it wasn't foreseeable. What else is going on in your office?
We tried 37 jury trials last year
Okay.
alone. That's 92 days that prosecutors spent in jury trials. You know, it used to be early in my career that many trials were only 1 or 2 days. Now we're having several day jury trials.
Okay.
So that's an indication of the forensic evidence that is generally available
Right.
and producing all of that to a jury. So it's becoming more time consuming than it ever has been. Our jurors, I'll always put a plug in, we need good jurors. Please don't shrug the obligation and duty that is your jury service.
Will you take lawyers?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So yes. We don't want, it's funny. Each prosecutor has their own like criteria who we're looking for and who we're not looking for, and it depends. It depends is what I would say, but I can't say I've ever had a lawyer serve on any one of my juries.
My sister prosecutes capital crimes in Texas, and she won't put a lawyer on the jury panel. For people out there who may not truly understand, when you say forensic evidence, what does that encompass?
Oh, a whole host of things. Crime scene technicians, I'll kind of go in order of how they're developed during an investigation. Crime scene technicians that process evidence. That evidence, physical evidence, is sent to the lab for fingerprints, DNA, biology, ballistics, cell phone extractions, downloads of cell phone contents.
Right.
Those are most often the types of experts that we use, and medical examiners, forensic pathologists, that sort of thing.
What role do fingerprints play anymore? Are they significant?
It's rare that we have a case that they're, but I say it's rare. We rely mostly on DNA, biological evidence, but fingerprints are still a crucial piece.
Okay. Predicated on your big win last time, it appears that the public is very, very pleased with the work that your office is doing. It's strange, I would think, for a line prosecutor / politician to be able to walk that line and make that work. Do you find it challenging?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I believe that this work is a calling, and there have been rarely an occasion where a decision was so close that I couldn't make a decision. I'm not sure there's ever been. My only measure has ever been, can I put my head on my pillow at night?
Gotcha.
It is that simple.
That's well put.
It does not mean that I understand that on both sides of the aisle there are effects, right, for victims and their families and defendants and their families. But my mandate is really clear to do the right thing every day. So
okay.
There are the rules of ethics help guide that, of course.
Sure.
And having the right people to do this work with.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about this new legislation that's popped up involving children.
So in 2022, the legislature passed a number of measures that were not good for enforcement, not good for accountability. We were able to roll back a smidge of that this session with Senator Carrozza's assistance, in that now the Department of Juvenile Services has to advise the state's attorney's office of all felonies that occur in the county, and the new legislation this year has given the courts a little bit more discretion in when to hold juveniles. But what happened in 2022 still has a great effect in interfering with identifying juvenile perpetrators early and holding them accountable.
Once you identify them, what's the next step?
Well, the evidence collection and identification kind of track along the same route, right? But what the issue is that we're having now is the limitations on interrogating juveniles, even juveniles charged as adults, because they've committed a crime of violence. They can be charged as an adult if they're over 16 automatically. So law enforcement cannot question them without calling a 1-800 number that's associated with the Office of the Public Defender. And they get advice from that number. And one instance recently, a juvenile elected to speak with law enforcement despite that advisement from the Office of the Public Defender, but most of the time the juveniles say, no, I'm not going to talk to you. And it may be in their interest to talk to us. We might be able to rule them out as a suspect. And parents have very little say-so.
Okay. This new legislation, I guess we tip our hat to Senator Carosa for being involved with this. She's always been a very conscientious legislator. Was there any blowback? Was there a movement against doing this?
So yes, of course. I mean, look, not much changed. We made some progress in Annapolis this year, but I do believe that efforts to explain to the legislature what they've done, the effect of what they've done. I believe that we'll make progress next year, next legislative session, and more once citizens really feel the effect of how this legislation has impacted law enforcement, prosecutors, and the court's ability to keep them safe. Okay.
Was this otherwise a successful legislative session for you?
We rolled back a little bit of the 2022. So, and we made some headway on some motor vehicle driving offenses. So in serious injury cases.
Okay. When this was passed in 2022, what was the thinking on the part of the legislature to do this? Were they under the impression that juveniles were being unfairly treated?
They have this notion that juveniles falsely confess, and not only falsely confess at higher rates. I think the research on that is pretty clear. But in Maryland, I don't know of one instance in which a juvenile has falsely confessed in the state of Maryland that led to a conviction. I've not been advised of that, but they are operating under this notion that is not borne out by facts, more a narrative. Look, prosecutors, we cannot prosecute anyone based upon their statement alone. That would be inconsistent with the law, with the legal requirements. So it is putting all of those pieces together to determine what happened and who's accountable and how is it that the law is going to hold them accountable. So a defendant's admission, a juvenile's admission, is but one piece of the pie.
Right. Are the other local legislators on board with this?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, what else is going on in that very busy office of yours?
So we working through budget. The county executive has rolled the budget over to the council. I'm looking to retain and recruit qualified and committed individuals, certainly prosecutors. That's always the notion. It is that we live in such a rural area. The beach isn't quite enough to attract young, ambitious attorneys who would want to, be in more metropolitan jurisdictions.
Okay.
So, but we've got an incredible staff committed to this work. So.
Well, hopefully the people at University of Baltimore are helping to find these folks.
Yes.
What does your typical new prosecutor, when they come into this job, what are their expectations? Learning curve?
Their expectations, I think that, most litigators, most prosecutors want to try jury trials, right? So
Yeah.
that's, they're able to get to trying jury trials here faster than what happens in other jurisdictions that
Okay.
have larger offices. I'm not sure what their expectations are. I'd like to think that they're to learn as much about the work and soak it all in and get the litigation experience that we have to offer.
Right. I follow you on Facebook, and I'm always just very, very pleased to see the posts that you have of your family. You guys are just you belong on a cereal box somewhere. You're that photogenic. But it's always, I know with my sister, trying to manage the extreme requirements of running this office and family and kids. What do you find is your greatest challenge? Is it time?
It is time. It's and being present in the moment, quite frankly, because I'm always thinking about something at work, right? So
Right.
that's something. I'm revealing too much about myself to you, but it's something that I work on. It is because I do feel pulled in many directions, but I trust that I'm teaching my children work ethic and compassion and what a difference that you can make when you commit yourself wholly to your community.
Well, with your children, are they gravitating more towards law or accounting?
So definitely not accounting. So definitely not accounting. My youngest I'm convinced he's going to be a farmer or a rancher of some sort.
Well, good for him.
That is all he has ever wanted to do.
Okay.
So he's 11 now. And
Boy, that's a tough business now, though, with family farms.
It is. He tills with and helps harvest with my uncle and his farming operation, and he's just happy spending 10, 12 hours on a combine.
Wonderful.
So I think Johnny's safe from the law or accounting, although there will be some accounting with the farming, of course. But Jackson, he loves science and math, so who knows what the future holds, and history.
Now, your husband is in law enforcement also.
He is.
Okay. How did you guys meet?
Oh my goodness. So I actually met his father before I met him. So I worked for Bob Eaton, who's an attorney in town, my last year of high school. And Colburn and Bob were close friends and would come in and have lunch on occasion. And actually, my aunt was a captain with the Salisbury Police Department, where Colburn was chief. And so we're a small world in Wicomico.
Yes, I suspect it is. What does the future hold for you?
I want the Office of the State's Attorney for Wicomico County needs strong leadership, needs consistent leadership.
Right.
So that is where my commitment is.
Okay. I know, with everybody who's, elected to office, there's always that question in the background, going up the ladder. I know people, used to say that about Jake Day. And, he said that he would never leave. But, there's a draw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, I was born and raised here. My husband was born and raised here. All of our family lives here. And we care about this community in a way I think that few people do. So while I might have thought, of other things, it's my loyalty to this community is strong. So I think I'm here.
Okay.
I think you've got me for the long haul, or as long as the voters will have me.
I think the voters will have you as long as you want to run for this office, because I think you have tremendous and deep support among the electorate. I know with my friends that is the case. Well, what else can we talk about?
Well, let's see. Oh, we did. I'm glad I made a note.
Yeah.
We exonerated 2 men last year in 2023. tragic stories of their. They were convicted both in the 1990s,
Okay.
several years apart here in Wicomico. The procedural history is very interesting, but we found out about the case of David Veeney, and then we supported his exoneration. And then as a result of investigating that case, right, like looking back, making sure that we knew what happened and how to fix it, and how to maybe not be in that position again, we also discovered Grant Jones's case, in which a victim, it was the same victim in both cases. They were prosecuted years apart. She made claims of sexual assault years apart.
Okay.
And the similarities weren't appreciated by the prosecutor at the time.
Okay.
And how the injuries that the victim suffered in each case were self-inflicted, or that was the medical
Right.
opinion at the time. Those men spent many years incarcerated for crimes that they did not commit.
Were they at ECI?
In the 90s, I'm not certain where they were
Okay.
held. I'm not certain where they were held, but they were held in state facilities. Remarkable people who persevered in spite of the odds. And David Veeney's story especially is remarkable. Senior Assistant State's Attorney Patrick Gilbert handled those
Okay.
for our office. And when we were at the first hearing on David Veeney's case, he asked the administrative law judge, what would you trade? What would any of us trade for our 20s? Right? Because there is a
would you?
financial compensation piece, right?
Yeah.
So the minuscule amount of money that they get, right, is nothing compared to what they've lost, right? The
Agreed.
time that they lost. And Mr. Veeney is, he has a solid faith, and that, I believe, is what has carried him through, and an immense sense of gratitude. But having handled those two exonerations, it gives me great perspective, and gives my office prosecutors great perspective as to the responsibility that we owe everyone.
Yeah.
So it's
Wow.
that was remarkable to experience that, to be involved in that, and that is just as important work as holding offenders who do commit crimes accountable, is admitting when there was an error, when there are mistakes, and doing our best to correct those.
Gotcha. Well, kudos to you. Well, this is Eastern Shore Politics, and we are thrilled to have State's Attorney Jamie Dykes here with us today. Tune in next time. We don't know who the guest is going to be. It probably doesn't matter, because we have one of the finest guests we've ever had here right now. Thank you. Namaste.